Walk into my cellar this morning and look at the shelf nearest the door. Not the canned beans, not the jars of beets and the rows of tomatoes my wife Esther puts up every September. The plain row underneath, the one I built from a single oak board where the boxes and bags sit with no labels worth bragging about. A sack of salt, a box of soda, a jug of vinegar, a tin of wax, a bag of lime. And I want to tell you something that took me most of my life to understand, standing right there in the cool and the dark with a lamp in my hand. Everything on that shelf came from a store you have already been inside. Every single item costs less than $5. And between them, those plain bags have kept this family fed, warm, clean, and standing through winters that put other men in the hospital and other men deep in debt. No generator humming in the yard. No bunker dug under the garden. No $10,000 pantry system sold to you by a young man in a tactical vest who has never once spent a winter off the grid. Just a handful of things the English walk past every week of their lives and never once see. After my last video, hundreds of you wrote to me, and you all said nearly the same thing. You said, Jacob, the techniques are good, but where does a man even begin? I do not have land. I do not have a barn or a draft horse or 80 acres. I have a job and a house with a mortgage on it and a Walmart 15 minutes down the road. And that letter, written 100 different ways by 100 different people, is the reason I went back down to that cellar shelf this week, and I counted 11 things, 11 plain items, every one of them under $5, every one of them sitting on a shelf at the very same store you already push a cart through on a Saturday. And before this video is over, I am going to show you the one item on that list that a Roman engineer wrote down 2,000 years ago, that your own city still uses tonight to clean the water coming out of your kitchen tap, and that you can hold in your hand for $4 and do the very same job yourself in your own home. The industry that sells you the expensive version of that one item made very, very sure you would never connect the two. So stay with me, because that is the one I have saved for last. Now I need to be honest with you, the way I am going to be honest with you the whole way through this. None of these 11 things are a secret, and that is the part that should bother you more than any conspiracy ever could. They are not hidden in a vault. They are not banned. They are hidden in plain sight, behind a price tag and a clever name and a picture of a smiling family on a label. The companies that sell you the $40 version of a $4 thing did not bury these items in the ground. They did something far smarter and far quieter. They taught you slowly over your whole life that the cheap one on the bottom shelf is for poor people and the expensive one at eye level with the bright box is for people who care about their families. My grandfather would have laughed until he coughed at that idea. He used to say to me, the English will pay $10 just to be told they are not poor. So let me walk you down that shelf, one item at a time, what it is, what it costs, and the half-dozen quiet things each one does that you have been paying other people good money to do for you, all these years, without ever knowing you held the answer in your own pantry. But before I do, let me give you the one rule that holds this whole shelf together, the rule my grandfather drilled into me before I was old enough to shave. Waste nothing and let one thing do many jobs. The English buy a separate bottle for every separate problem, a bottle to clean the glass, a bottle to clean the floor, a bottle to soften the clothes, a bottle to settle the stomach, a different bottle for every room and every ache, and a cabinet full to bursting with bottles that are 9 parts water and 1 part smell. That is not wealth. That is a kind of poverty dressed up to look like wealth. The man who is truly rich is the man whose few plain things each do 10 jobs, who knows what is in the bag and why it works, and who never has to ask anyone's permission or pay anyone's monthly fee to keep his family alive and well. Every single item I am about to show you earns its place on that shelf the same way. Not by doing one thing in a fancy bottle, by doing many things plainly, for almost nothing, the way the old people always knew it could be done. Item 1, plain salt, The big cardboard box, the kind with the little girl and the umbrella on the front, or the plain white bag if your store carries it cheaper. 69 cents, maybe $1. And I want you to understand before you wave it off that for most of human history salt was money. Roman soldiers were paid in it, and that is where your word salary comes from, salt money, the pay a man could not live without. Whole cities rose up out of nothing around a salt mine, the way your cities today rise up around a highway interchange. Wars were fought over it, and the reason is the simplest reason in the world. Salt is the one thing on this earth that stops meat from rotting without electricity. Before there was a humming white box in your kitchen, there was salt in the smokehouse. You pack a fresh ham in coarse salt, you hang it in the cool, and that meat will still be good to put on your table a year later. No power, no compressor, no machine that dies the moment the grid goes down. We cure our own pork that way every single winter, the same way my father did and his father. But salt does not stop at meat. A spoonful stirred into warm water pulls a sore throat down inside a day. It draws the swelling out of an infected finger if you soak it. It melts the ice on the cellar steps so Esther does not fall and break a hip at 70. It scours a cast iron pan clean without stripping the seasoning off it. One box, under $1. And it is, without any argument, the single most important survival item that has ever existed on this planet. The English keep it next to the pepper and forget it is even there. Item 2, baking soda. The plain yellow box, $1, often less than that. Now think about that for a second, because this one humble box quietly does the work of about 9 different products sitting under your sink and in your medicine cabinet right now. It is a leavening agent, so it makes your biscuits and your bread rise without yeast. It is a mild antacid, so a half teaspoon stirred into a glass of water settles a sour, burning stomach better and faster than the colored tablets they charge you $6 a roll for. It scrubs a scorched pot. It deodorizes a foul drain in a musty cellar. It cleans your teeth white. It takes the fire out of a bee sting and a nettle rash. It softens the hard water that fights your laundry soap. But here is the part most folks live their whole life and never learn. Baking soda puts out a grease fire, a kitchen fire, a fat fire in a pan, even a small electrical fire. You throw a good handful straight onto it and it smothers the flame dead, because the heat turns the soda into carbon dioxide gas, and fire cannot breathe gas, no more than you can. That red fire extinguisher bolted to your wall, the one that cost you $40 and is quietly expiring in a drawer with a gauge nobody ever checks, is doing a louder, more violent version of what a $1 box of soda does in your hand. We keep a box on the back of the cook stove and another box out on the workbench. My grandfather kept one in the buggy his whole life and only ever needed it once. Once was enough. Item 3, distilled white vinegar, the big jug from the bottom shelf. $2, maybe $3 for a whole gallon. This is nothing but acetic acid and water, and it is one of the very oldest preservatives known to mankind. The Babylonians made it 5,000 years ago. The Roman legions drank it watered down on the long march, because it kept and it killed the bad things in foul water. You can pickle a whole summer garden in it, cucumbers and beets and beans and onions, and eat off those jars clear through to spring. But a true survival pantry is never only about food. That same gallon kills the weeds coming up through your gravel without poisoning the ground for years the way the sprayed chemical does. It descales the kettle and the steam iron. It cuts kitchen grease the brand name spray charges you $8 to cut. It rinses out a wound. And it softens your laundry without that perfumed liquid that costs 10 times as much and secretly coats your towels in a thin wax until they stop drinking up water at all. Here is the thing they will never print on the label of the fabric softener. Vinegar is the fabric softener. The expensive bottle is mostly water, a little oil, and a smell somebody designed in a laboratory. You are paying for a smell. A gallon of plain vinegar does the honest work for the price of a cup of coffee and leaves no smell at all once it dries. Item 4, plain chlorine bleach, unscented, regular strength, $2. And I want you to listen very closely to me right here. Set down whatever is in your hands, because this is the one that matters most on the day things go truly wrong. When the water stops being safe to drink. When the storm knocks the treatment plant offline for a week. When the well runs cloudy and brown after a flood. 8 drops of plain bleach in 1 gallon of clear water, stirred well, and left to stand for 30 minutes by the clock, makes that water safe to drink. 8 drops, not the scented kind, not the splashless kind, not the one with the additives and the brightener and the picture of mountains on it. Plain sodium hypochlorite, the boring jug on the very bottom shelf that nobody reaches for. It is the exact same chemistry your municipal water plant uses on the water that comes to your house every single day of your life. They sell you bottled water by the case, $3, $4, $5 for a flat of plastic that fills a landfill. One $2 jug of plain bleach will make hundreds of gallons of cloudy water safe to drink. Now, I will be honest with you, the way I promised. It does not work on a chemical spill. It does nothing for poisons you cannot see, and it will not work right if the water is muddy until you have filtered that mud out through cloth first. But for the kind of trouble most families will ever actually face in their lives, a storm, a flood, a broken main, this plain jug is the whole difference between a safe week and a sick one. The breathless videos will never tell you the limits of a thing. I always will. Item 5. Petroleum jelly. The little tub. $3, $4 and 1 tub lasts a man years. The English think of it as something for chapped lips in the winter, and so it is. But carry that same little tub out to the barn with you. Smear a thin coat on the bare metal of any tool, and that tool will not rust, not for a season, because rust is only iron meeting air and water at the same time, and the jelly seals both of them out completely. Rub it deep into a dry, cracking leather harness or a pair of stiff work boots, and the leather drinks it in and goes soft and supple again. Put a dab on a hinge that screams every morning. Now here is the trick my grandfather taught me when I was a boy no higher than the workbench, and I have never forgotten it. Take a plain cotton ball, the ordinary kind from the same store, and work the jelly all the way through it with your fingers until it is soaked clear to the center. That one cotton ball will now catch a single spark off a flint and burn with a steady flame for 3, even 4 minutes. In the wind, in the damp, long enough to coax wet kindling alight and start the fire that saves your life on a cold night. A whole bag of cotton and 1 tub of jelly is 100 fire starters, sitting ready, for under $5 total. The outdoor store sells you a little box of waterproof matches for more than that, and the matches run out the first bad night, and then you have nothing. Item 6. Borax. The old white box with the 20-mule team marching across the front, the same picture for over 100 years, $4. This is a simple mineral, sodium borate, scraped right out of dry desert lake beds, and it has been cleaning houses and killing pests since long before your grandmother was born. A scoop in the wash and your clothes come out cleaner, and the hard water finally stops fighting your soap. But the reason it earns its hard-won place on the survival shelf is what it quietly does to insects. You lay a thin line of borax along the baseboards, down in the cracks, behind the cookstove, under the sink, and the ants and the roaches walk through it, and they carry it home on their bodies to the nest, and the whole colony dies from it. It scratches through their hard shell and dries them out from the inside. And here is the beauty of it. There is no way for them to grow resistant to it, the way the roaches in your walls have already grown resistant to the expensive spray you keep buying. It is not a poison they can outlast. It kills the fungus and the mold on a damp wall. It deodorizes a drain that has gone sour. Mixed right, it even slows a fire creeping through cloth. The exterminator who charges you $80 a visit and a contract is, for half the jobs he does, spreading a powder not so very different from the $4 box you can buy and spread yourself. You keep it well away from the little ones and the animals, the very same as you would the spray, and then it does its quiet work for years. Item 7. Garden lime. Hydrated lime, the heavy bag from the garden aisle. $5 for a bag that will last you the better part of 10 years. Now this is the one the old people knew cold in their bones, and the young people today have forgotten so completely they do not even know the word. Lime is calcium, burned in a kiln and then slaked with water, and it is the great purifier of the entire old world. You whitewash a barn with it, just lime and water and a handful of salt, and that bright white coat is not only for the look of the thing on a Sunday. It disinfects the very wood it sits on. It reflects the brutal summer heat back off the walls so the animals inside stay cooler and calmer, and it holds down the flies and the mildew all season long. A few handfuls of lime down the outhouse, or spread over anything that has died and needs to go quietly back to the earth, and the smell is gone and the rot is stopped cold, because lime is plain death to the bacteria that cause both the stink and the spread of sickness. It sweetens a sour, acid soil so your garden will actually grow in it. And listen to this. The great hospitals of the 1800s, where mothers were dying by the hundreds of childbed fever, finally stopped killing their own patients only when they began washing the walls and the hands with lime. $5 in your hand today. The very same chemistry that turned the tide in those death wards. Item 8. Cotton clothesline and a fat roll of jute twine beside it. The two together under $5. I know it sounds humble standing next to bleach and lime, but you go and ask any man who has ever once been caught out without a single length of strong cord what he would have given in that moment for 30 good feet of it. You hang the wash on the line and save the electric dryer that quietly eats a quarter of your power bill. You lash up a broken fence rail. You tie a tarp down tight before the night wind takes it off into the next county. You make a snare for a rabbit when the larder is low. You splint a broken leg on a man or on an animal, and the jute, that rough brown twine, is so much more than just a tie. Pull a length of it apart into its loose fibers and fluff them up between your fingers, and that is tinder that takes a spark instantly, faster than almost anything in the woods. A few inches of frayed jute tucked under your jelly-soaked cotton ball, and you have a fire going in any weather God sends. Cord and fire both off one shelf for the price of a gas station sandwich. My grandfather always said a man with rope and fire is never truly stranded anywhere, and a man with neither one is already in trouble even standing still in his own yard. Item 9. Epsom salt, the plain carton down in the pharmacy aisle, $4. Now this is not table salt at all despite the name, and you must not confuse the two. It is magnesium sulfate, and it does 3 separate jobs no other single item on this whole shelf can do half as well. Out in the garden, you work it into the soil and it feeds the ground magnesium, and your tomatoes and your peppers green right up and bear heavier fruit, because magnesium is the very thing the leaf uses to catch and hold the sunlight. In the body, a long hot soak with a full cup of it dissolved in the water pulls the deep ache right out of a back that spent the whole day pitching hay or hauling stone, and the magnesium itself goes in gently through the skin while you rest. And drawn up thick into a paste, it pulls. It draws a buried splinter up and out of the flesh overnight. It draws the head out of an angry boil. It brings a deep infection up to the surface where it can finally drain and heal. The old country midwives kept a carton of it for exactly that purpose and nothing else. $4 for the garden, the bath, and the whole medicine chest, all of it in one plain carton the English buy once for a single sore foot, and then forget in the back of a closet for a decade. Item 10. Paraffin wax and a small spool of cotton wick to go with it. The canning aisle, or sometimes over in the craft aisle. The two together, $4. Wax is stored fire and stored waterproofing both, and our people have leaned hard on both of those for 200 years and more. You melt it down and pour a thin layer over the top of a jar of jelly or jam, and it seals the air out so the food keeps through the winter without spoiling. You rub a block of it along a drawer that sticks, a saw that binds in the cut, a window sash that will not budge, and they all slide free and easy. Dip the frayed end of a rope in melted wax and the rope stops unraveling for good. But the plainest and oldest truth of wax is light. When the power is out, and the dark comes crashing down at 5 o'clock in the afternoon in the dead of January, a block of wax and a length of cotton wick is as many candles as you have the patience to make. You melt the wax, you set the wick down in it, and you have hours upon hours of steady, honest light for pennies. The English will buy a single fat candle in a glass jar for $15 and burn it down just for the smell of it. That very same money spent on plain block wax and a spool of wick is a whole winter of light against the dark. Item 11. And this is the one I told you at the very start that I had saved for last. Activated charcoal, or even plain hardwood lump charcoal that you crush down yourself with a hammer. $4–5 a bag. Now, charcoal is simply wood that has been burned slow in a way that drives off everything but the pure carbon, and what is left behind is riddled through with millions upon millions of tiny holes, so much hidden surface folded up inside it that a single handful, if you could unfold it all and lay it flat, would cover most of a field. And things stick fast in all those holes. Poisons stick. Foul odors stick. The very things that make water taste and smell bad get caught and held. You run cloudy, foul-smelling water down through a tall column packed with crushed charcoal, and it comes out the bottom running clear and clean-tasting, because the charcoal has grabbed and held onto the foulness all the way down. And this is no trick that I invented in my barn. A Roman engineer and writer named Pliny the Elder wrote this very thing down nearly 2,000 years ago. The ancient Egyptians lined their water vessels with charred wood long before even him. And now here is exactly what I promised you back at the start of all this. Your own city water plant, the very one that is sending water to your kitchen tap as you sit and listen to me right now, runs all of that water through deep beds of activated carbon to pull the bad taste and the chemicals out of it before it ever reaches your glass. The same word, the same carbon, the same idea exactly. And the industry turns around and sells you a filter pitcher and a $40 cartridge that needs throwing away and replacing every 2 months. And the beating heart of that expensive little cartridge is nothing more than the $4 bag of charcoal sitting on the very bottom shelf. The doctors keep it too, mind you. It is one of the first things the emergency room reaches for in many a poisoning, because the charcoal grabs hold of the poison down in the gut before the body has time to take it up. 2,000 years old. In your tap water tonight. $4 in your open hand. So there it all is, laid out plain. 11 items. Salt, soda, vinegar, bleach, jelly, borax, lime, cord, Epsom, wax, and charcoal. Add the whole shelf up, every last one, and you have not spent $50. And you are carrying out the door in 2 paper bags the honest ability to preserve your food, to purify your water, to start a fire, to put a fire out, to clean and close a wound, to kill the pests in your walls, to light the dark of winter, to feed your soil, and to keep meat through the hardest months of the year. Things your own great-grandmother could do without stopping to think about it, and that a grown man today will pay thousands of dollars and a monthly subscription fee to be told that he can almost nearly, just about do. Now let me be honest with you one more time before we are through, the way I promised at the start, because this is exactly where the breathless videos all lie, and I will not do it. None of these 11 plain things will save you from everything under the sun. The bleach will not clean up a chemical spill. The charcoal will not pull every last poison out of your water, and it does nothing at all for the germs you cannot see, so you boil or you bleach for those. The borax and the lime both must be kept well away from the children and the animals, because cheap has never once meant harmless. And the salt cure takes real skill, and a cool place, and a willingness to learn slowly, and your first ham may very well not be your best one. These are not magic beans. They are tools, every one of them. And the whole reason they have lasted 2,000 years is not that any one of them does everything. It is that each one does its own few honest jobs well for almost nothing forever and asks nothing back from you in return. That is the whole of it right there. And that is what was truly taken from you. Not the items themselves, mind you. They were always sitting right there on the shelf, where they have been your whole life. What was taken from you was the knowing. Nobody ever sat you down and taught you that the $4 box does the exact same work as the $40 one, because there has never been a single dollar in teaching you that. There is only money in the $40 box. And I will tell you plainly, there is no conspiracy of wicked men in a dark, smoky room behind any of it. The truth is simpler than that and sadder. A company cannot keep its lights on selling you a 69-cent box of salt one time in your life. So it does not spend a penny advertising the salt. It spends millions advertising the gadget, the subscription, the system, the thing with the smiling family on the bright label. And after enough long years of that, a whole entire country slowly forgets that its own great-grandparents ran a full household, fed a family of 10, and outlasted brutal winters out of a single shelf of plain bags that cost, in today's money, less than one trip through the drive-through window. You were not so much lied to, as you were simply left untaught. And being left untaught for a whole lifetime is its own quiet kind of robbery. So if you are the kind of person who believes that real, honest knowledge has been quietly pushed aside to protect somebody else's profit, then you already know exactly what to do. Go to that store this very week. Not for all 11 at once, do not overwhelm yourself. Start with just 3. Start with the salt, the soda, and the bleach. The food, the fire, and the water. Set them on a shelf where you can see them every day. And then the next time the lights flicker and go out, or the storm rolls in, or the bill lands in your mailbox, you are going to feel something your neighbors up and down the road will not feel. You are going to feel ready. And that feeling right there is not for sale at any price in any store, and yet it costs about $15 to begin to build it. Now I truly want to hear from you, and I do read every single one of these late at night. Drop down in the comments the one item from this whole list that you already had sitting in your own house without ever knowing the half of what it could do. The salt, the soda, the vinegar. Tell me which one it was, and tell me what state you are writing to me from, because I do like to know just how far this old knowledge is still traveling these days. I read every comment late, by the light of the lamp, after Esther has long gone up to bed. And if this was worth your time tonight, go and hit the like button, because that truly is the only way this reaches the next person out there still paying $40 for a $4 thing. Subscribe and stay close to me, because next time I am going to open the other shelf. The one where I keep the 3 plain things our people have used for 200 years to keep a whole house warm through the very coldest nights of the year, without ever once touching the power company. And one of those 3 things is a common building material that your own county may have quietly made it against the building code to use. I have found the exact year they changed that rule, and I have found the name of the man who sat in a room and asked them to change it, and the reason he gave for it. But that is a story I am saving for the next time we sit down together. Take what you have learned here today, write it down on paper, share it with someone you love before you forget it, and remember, the people who built this country with their hands knew things we are only just starting to remember.